Chapter 57, Flight to Earth. The affair cries haste, and speed must answer it. You must away tonight. Othello, Act 1, Scene 3. We landed in the great amphitheatre of the station. The magnificent ether volts which were to convey us once more through the realms of space were resting on their platforms. They were models of beauty, 60 feet high by 30 wide at the base, and glittered like burnished silver. From their summits projected the metallic shafts surmounted by the magnetic globes. Their interiors were commodious and elegant. The circular doors and windows with their telescopic lenses, the air generators, calorific apparatus, instruments, ample supplies of provisions, etc. Beneath the platforms were the great polar magnetic batteries, manned by the operators clad in their crystal armor. Burris now took a small metallic casket. Accompanied by one of the telegraphic operators, we entered the private office of the station. He opened the casket and carefully removed an exceedingly delicate and beautiful instrument, placed it on the table. A brilliant and highly sensitive dial plate of mingled steel and crystal was attached to the instrument, directly over the keys. "Gentlemen," said Asterion, "I take pleasure in announcing to you the invention of our young friend Burris." "What is it?" we asked. "The interplanetary telegraph." The cheers that followed this announcement made the walls of the amphitheatre ring. "By means of which message can be sent from Mars to Earth and back again through the cosmomagnetic currents running between them. I consider it the greatest invention of the age." Burris blushed like a schoolboy at his master's compliment, and as we all shook him by the hand, "I dedicate my little invention to Asterion," he said. "If you don't look out, Asterion, Burris will strip you of your laurels," said Altiphora. "Oh, I'm expecting it any day, the sly dog. Before we took our asteroidal trip, he used to sit cooped up in his corner of our workshop, pegging away at his machine day and night, without letting me know anything about it till it was finished." "He's got something better than that on hand," said Vidian. "What?" we asked. "An interplanetary osphoron, or talking machine, by which the inhabitants of Mars and Earth can converse together as easily as if they were seated side by side in each other's parlors." We all began to cheer louder than before. "Please don't hurrah till the chicken is hatched," implored Burris. "Many an egg of invention turns out addled." He now made the wire connections between the telegraph and the metallic rods which ran directly to the polar magnetic center beneath the foundations of the station. Asterion then spoke to the operator. "You will remain in this office day and night, taking your meals and sleeping here. When we reach the south pole of Earth, which will be within a week at farthest, unless unforeseen delays occur, Burris will set up his other instrument at the polar station and signal to you our arrival, which will appear on the dial plate written out in symbols. You will immediately transmit the same to the Duke at his palace, and send me his reply. Other instructions I will send you hereafter. Burris will remain at the station there. Telegraph to him immediately any news of importance you may receive." We now passed out and ascended the platforms of the ether volts, one of which was in charge of Asterion, the other of Vidian. The contents of our airship had been transferred to the cars, and Captain Susanak and the crew had fastened it by a long chain to Vidian's car, its anti-gravitational batteries having been adjusted to the proper degree of tension for its journey through space. It was 10 o'clock at night. The stars shone bright in the clear vault above, and among them gleamed the soft and rosy light of our dear Mother Earth, 120 million miles away. I gazed on her with emotion of joy, such as a traveler feels who sees glimmering light of his far distant home. Yet were mingled with feelings of awe as I contemplated this perilous journey once more through the infinite abysses of space. "Well, Lieutenant," queried Asterion, "do you feel as nervous about returning as you did coming?" "I frankly confess I don't see much difference about it," I replied. "John, how do you feel about it?" he asked. "Oh, me like traveling around the stars, big heap. Nice fun, ain't that so, Jack?" "Fact, damned ain't," replied the Commodore, perched on his shoulder. "How is it with you, Hartillion?" "Well, My great-great-great-grandfathers flew all the way from Pluto here to get rid of a smash-up there, and I don't see why their great-great-grandson shouldn't follow suit to get rid of a threatened smash-up here," replied the Colossus with a grin. "By the way, Lieutenant, have you any big fellows over there like me, or any Leviathans I can ride over the sea?" I replied that we had few giants, but the tallest could walk under his armpits with their umbrellas over their heads, and there was nothing in the way of a seahorse for him to ride except a Greenland whale. "I'll catch a young one and put him in training," said he. "All aboard for Earth!" cried out Captain Susanak. We bade adieu to the superintendent and ascended the platform. Half of our party, headed by Asterion, entered one car, the rest with Vidian entered the other, and the doors were shut. The assistants took their positions. The operators worked the batteries beneath the platforms. A profound vibration seemed to arise from solid ground, and the granite walls of the amphitheater trembled. Showers of electric sparks flew from the magnetic globes on the staffs. Both ethervolts rose gracefully from their platforms, followed by the airship attached by its chain. Enclosed within the mighty cosmic streams, we swiftly traversed the atmosphere and entered the gaseous envelope surrounding the planet. The moons came in full view. Their appearance was far more terrible than seen from the surface. Leaving Mars far behind, we entered the vast interplanetary space amid the full glories of the heavens with their starry galaxies, constellations, suns, and nebula, the Milky Way spreading its mighty arch over all. "Look," said Asterion, pointing to the west. "There speeds the terrible comet that dashed through our meteoric belt." We looked through the windows. Millions of miles distant, that dreadful messenger of destruction hung in the heavens like the sword of Damocles. Here and there in the distance floated faint nebulous clouds. "Those are some of the offshoots whirled from the belt by the comet," said Burrus. "Wretched tramps in the celestial universe, giving our planet and its poor unoffending moons so much trouble. Of what use are they?" In the economy of the universe, nothing is made in vain. Every evil also has its corresponding good. They are the materials of which the worlds are made, said Asterion. "But these comets," said I, wandering Bedouins, in the interplanetary desert, of what use are they? "They are the helpers, and render valuable service in the manufacture of worlds," replied he. "Please explain." "The rolling up of asteroidal and meteoric belts into solid planets is a slow process. The occasional advent of a comet among them is necessary to stir them up to their work, which is accomplished by lashing them liberally with its tail." I confessed that Asterion had thrown new and valuable light on the usefulness of comets. "This last one was evidently a new hand at the business," remarked Altiphora. "Like an over-bustling housewife or raw chambermaid, it raised a terrible dust with its broom while sweeping the celestial carpet." "And that very dust has its uses also," replied Asterion. "It teaches us the instability of planetary affairs, as well as the vanity of human affairs." The moral lesson inculcated by comets were satisfactorily demonstrated. The meteoric cloud which was to strike Mars in 60 days, being many million miles distant, was invisible. The batteries were now put to higher tension as we sped through space, and in 2 days we advanced 30 million miles. We encountered no meteorites on the way, millions of them having gathered up and swept away by the tail of the comet. We had now reached the neutral point between Mars and Earth, where the attractive forces mutually balance each other, where all gravitation ceases, and everything weighs nothing. This point had no fixed position, but continually varies according to the ever-changing distances of the planets from each other in their orbital revolutions. Asterion asked us with a grim smile if we would not like to indulge in the same Turposhian performance we did before, but as we all declared we had enjoyed enough celestial waltzing to satisfying us for the balance of our lives, he shot the car past this seductive interplanetary ballroom like a flash of lightning. Vidian's ethervolt followed close in our wake, several miles in the rear, the airship fastened by its chain speeding gracefully behind. In this empty space where there is no resisting medium, and weight amounts to practically nothing, the slenderest filament of silk or even a spider's web could have drawn her. She looked like a tiny silver shuttle flying between the warp and woof of this interplanetary carpet. We now flew onwards with tremendous speed, and by nightfall of the seventh day had flown the whole distance of 120 million miles, and were nearing Earth. Its immense south polar disk spread beneath us, displaying in clear outlines and colors the Antarctic continent, South Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, with their clusters of islands, the southern extremities of Africa, Australia, and South America. We swiftly traversed the gaseous envelope and atmosphere, and the same magnificent auroral display that commemorated our departure greeted our return. In the very midst of the upshooting columns and spires of golden fire, the arches of crimson flame which flashed up to the heavens illuminated them with brilliant hues, our two ethervolts and airships slowly and gracefully descending side by side to the bubbling circles of waters in the center of the open polar sea. The doors were thrown open. Asterion fired off the signal gun. The superintendent and his assistants appeared on the platform, greeting our arrival with loud cheers. They put out boats, and rowing swiftly through the waves, threw out ropes, bent to their oars, and drew the ethervolts and ship close to the shore. "My own dear Mother Earth," I cried, springing out upon the ledge. "My native world, the land of my birth, my home! Oh, how my heart swells with joy as I greet thee once again!" And overcome with my emotions, I knelt and kissed the cold grey rock. At this moment the clocks in the ethervolt struck the hour that ushers in the Christmas morning. Propitious omen! With one accord we knelt and breathed our prayers of thanksgiving that the Almighty Father, whose kind hand had shielded us on our perilous journey. We landed on Earth, Sunday, December the 25th, 1892, terrestrial time. The planets were all engaged in their various zodiacal occupations. Vulcans, nearest the sun, at his anvil, were forging the thunderbolts of Jupiter, keeping an eye on his gay spouse Venus. Mercury, the herald of the gods and most slippery thief among them, was dodging around the sun in his usual style. Venus had turned her back on Virago, and was now in Libra, the scales, probably finding out her exact weight, advertorious. Our Luna was also in conjunction with her, which friendly associations rarely takes place between rival beauties. Mars was in Aquarius, evidently taking a bath, while old Mother Terra, herself in Capricorn, attended to her goats, had planted herself in between them, as she generally is, or ought to be on such occasions. Jupiter, with his 4 well-grown boys, a 5th one seemed to have lately turned up, was in Pisces, catching fish for his Christmas dinner. The old dethroned monarch Saturn, cannibalistic devourer of his own children, was in Virago, evidently trying to dazzle her eyes with a brilliant display of rings taken from the fingers of his dead wife Rhea. Poor old Uranus was wandering around in search of the bodies of the Titanic sons slain by Jupiter. Neptune was coursing in his chariot and horses over the remotest bounds of the planetary oceans, while our great solar luminary, mounted in Apollo's golden chariot, was speeding along through the abysmal depths of space towards the constellation Hercules, our whole family of planets, Earth included, following him. 120 million miles within 7 days, said Asterion, glancing up at the ruddy Mars rolling amidst the bright stars in the deep blue vault above. Pretty fair time. Hi, giggled John. Me much like glad for getting home again, by jingo. Jack flopped on top of the rock, flapped his wings, roaring out his most vociferous hurrahs that ever issued from a raven's beak. Hurrah! Hurrah! Wish ye a Merry Christmas! Never say die! All right! Then began to utter peculiar sounds like the drawing out of a cork out of a bottle, cocked his head on one side, and winked one eye at John. Hello, Corp! Hello, Commodore! What's up? Wish ye Merry Christmas! Thank you, Commodore. Wish you the same. Glass grog all round. By and by, Jack.